Shalom everyone, this is Chris Shoemaker, also known as Yehuda Ben Shomer, and welcome to the Daily Drosh. Today's Daily Drosh, I want to talk to you about Numbers, chapter 27, in regards to the daughters of Zelophehad. Now, Zelophehad, according to Jewish tradition, was the man who died in the wilderness on account of picking up sticks on Shabbat. And therefore he was stoned to death because they had incarcerated the man who did so, said, "Okay, Lord, this has never happened. What do we do?" And the Lord said, making an example of all of Israel, stone him to death. It doesn't specifically say so in Numbers chapter 27, but that is the Jewish tradition regarding who the daughters of Zelophehad is. Now, one reason they come to this conclusion is because the daughters go out of their way to tell Moses that he died in the wilderness, but he did not die in the rebellion of Korah. In other words, it wasn't a willful rebellion against the Lord that their father did, but an unwittingly one, an unwilling one, if you will. They were part of the tribe of Manasseh, and Zelophehad had no sons, and according to the Mosaic law and according to Jewish tradition, the sons are to get the inheritance of the father. Now, God is a covenant God, and God keeps his promises, even and especially if it flies in the face of culture, custom, and tradition of the day. Moses consulted God and come to the conclusion that Zelophehad's daughters had a right to inherit the inheritance in the land of their father, even though he didn't have any sons. So they made an exception in the law of Moses that if a man dies without having any sons and only having daughters, that the inheritance is to go to the daughters. Big deal, right? I'm telling you, back in the day, when this was established, it was unheard of. Women did not own property, at least not in, these Middle Eastern tribal peoples of that area and that land. Women did not inherit. Women did not, have land. So this was just revolutionary. It was unheard of. It was probably shocking when the children of Israel heard that this is true. And just also think that the inheritance was to go to the firstborn. How many times did God give, an inheritance or a covenant or a promise to the underdog, to the one that was not the firstborn? You think of Isaac. Even though that Ishmael was truly his firstborn, Isaac was the firstborn of Sarah. Isaac got the covenant. Jacob and Esau. Esau was older, but Jacob got it instead. And Ephraim and Manasseh. The oldest one didn't get the inheritance and the covenant like the younger one did. So God keeps his promises. He's faithful. He's definitely for women's rights. This passage will not be quoted or talked about by the feminists or the liberal media or agenda, because this is totally a mark against their theories and against their ways of thinking. But God was a God of women's rights. God was a God of fair and equal treatment. He was a God to keep his promises, because if he had no sons and the sons didn't get the inheritance, then the inheritance would disappear or go to somebody that wasn't a relative or somebody that didn't deserve it. And so this was a way to keep God's promise of inheritance to the people of Israel. So the inheritance of land stayed within the family. So I just think this is just a great example of how loving and fair that God is. And when you look at it in context, it was totally revolutionary during the day that God was actually giving women rights and allowing them to own property and allowing them to be leaders and make decisions. So I think that's great. So guys, thanks so much for listening. Shalom and Shavua Tov.
Hey folks, let me give you something to think about. Go to my YouTube channel, Ray Bash Katan, and look for the playlist, The Monthly Musings. There, you'll find a thought-provoking message from the Word of God for each month of the year.